After slaying the masked man, I decided to begin searching for my next target. However, the next second, his head suddenly started melting, sizzling, and smoking. Then, a familiar face fell out from it. When I saw him for the first time, I thought of the most righteous person I had recognized in my previous life, Pietro, the captain of the guard I met when searching for the Saintus. But at that moment, I suddenly noticed something unusual. Pietro shouldn't have had this mole under his right eye. Soon, my thoughts were pulled back to a night before I regressed. At that time, Pietro had mentioned to me that he had a twin brother, but after going into isolation training, his brother disappeared. It seems that Pietro's information was incorrect. His brother didn't go missing. Instead, his body was taken over by a demon, turning him into an undead. As for the ragged piece of cloth in my hand, I suspect it's likely related to something like a mask. I was quite curious about this. Could it be that the faces behind these masks are people I knew? At the same time, the other two subordinates of the ninth demon appeared. Seeing them take an aggressive stance, I didn't hesitate and struck first. After using Baskerville's first sword technique, I found that my attack only managed to hurt them slightly. It seems that to take them down, this battle is destined to last for a while. At this moment, Dollars was praying to the holy goddess. Her heart was extremely anxious, and impure thoughts kept wandering through her mind. That's why Dollars had come to pray in the middle of the night, hoping that the goddess would forgive the actions that should not have been present in her Saintus. But even as she desperately tried to overcome her inner thoughts, that handsome figure remained vivid in her mind. Like a virus, it had already taken root in her mind. Ultimately, she still had to rely on herself. Dollars, calm down. Vakir is just a good junior. But just then, Dollars was drawn to the intense fight in the corridor, and she also saw a familiar figure amidst the smoke and dust. It was Nighthound, whom she hoped to meet again. But why is the Nighthound here? And why is he fighting Quilty's guards? These were questions Dollars couldn't clear up, and after hearing Dollars shout the words Nighthound, I realized I had come to the wrong place. Just as I looked back to warn Dollars, a swift attack suddenly struck my waist. Seeing this, Dollars stepped in front of me. Stop it, all of you. Even though I don't know exactly what's going on, we can talk this out. But faced with Dollars' plea, the two men found her bothersome and chose to deal with her first before moving on with their plans. Saintus, run. Even though I shouted out loud, the Saintus just closed her eyes in fear, as if she hadn't heard at all. Helpless to block the two assaults with Beelzebub, I had no choice but to forcefully block the other with my arm. Looking at the scene, Dollars anxiously said, Nighthound, your arm. Hearing this, I reassured her it was fine. Then, I swiftly swung Beelzebub, destroying the weapon of the enemy in front of me. Immediately after, I pierced Beelzebub through his throat. Seeing this, the other enemy swung his sword to attack me from the side. However, I swiftly cut off both their heads at the same time. Dollars, who was watching from the side, was trembling with fear, but she suppressed her inner terror and instead eagerly urged me to extend my hand, offering to help heal my injuries. To this, I refused her kind offer, saying that the injuries weren't serious. Then, Dollars asked again, why were Quilty's guards attacking me? They should know who I am. Hearing this, I pointed to the ground and explained, because these two guys are not human. They are undead beings with human faces on their heads. Dollars seemed very surprised after hearing this. What exactly is going on? This kind of thing shouldn't be happening in the Quo Vadis family. I replied, you ask me, but I don't know how to answer either. On the contrary, as the Saintus, how did you not notice their abnormalities? After hearing my last sentence, Dollars' pupils immediately constricted sharply. Could it have been caused by him? Meanwhile, one of the faces on the ground was that of Staffordshire Baskerville from the Pitbull Knights, who had assisted me before and was said to have gone into isolation training after the incident in the deep forest. As for the other one, looking at the tattoo on his neck, he seems to be from the Don Quixote family. Come to think of it, Set was also in isolation training. Could it be that it has already become a demon's nest? At this moment, I couldn't help but think back to what the Morgue triplets had told me recently, that Camus went to isolation training, but because of Adolphe Morgue's orders, she withdrew and decided to join the Dark Hall to focus on studying magic. Just then, a wave of intense flames suddenly appeared in front of us, and the powerful force instantly destroyed the stone pillar walls in the room. Fortunately, I reacted quickly, not only blocking all the flames within the area, but also protecting Dollars. But when I saw the face of the one who had launched the surprise attack, the calmness I had maintained shattered. Are you Camus Morgue? Meanwhile, Dollars felt her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't expected that not only would I hold her in my arms, but I would also protect her without regard for my own safety. However, Dollars quickly regained control of her emotions, as she needed to deal with the enemy before her. Then, she asked me, is that person also an undead? I gave her a definite answer. However, I was curious about when that woman had started following Quilty. Dollars said she rarely interacted with Quilty, so she couldn't confirm the exact time. After speaking, Dollars began chanting a holy magic. If the enemy in front of me is an undead, as someone who serves the gods, she cannot just sit by and wait for death. I will fully support you, Nighthound. Upon hearing this, I ordered Dollars not to move for now, not to intervene, because there was something very important I needed to confirm with the red-haired girl on the other side. But just then, the red-haired girl suddenly gathered magic power in her palm, and immediately, several fiery swords were summoned by her, attacking me. However, this kind of attack posed no threat at all to me. I simply raised my hand and effortlessly effortlessly blocked the attacks. At this moment, looking at the red-haired girl, I realized she was using a combination of iron and fire magic, an ability that's rare even within the Morg family, especially at such a young age. Nevertheless, my heart at this moment kept urging me to temporarily retract Beelzebub. It seems that if I didn't take this opportunity to accept some punishment, I would probably have to endure several more months of pain. So, when facing the red-haired girl's next attack, I chose to directly withstand it with my own body. Before I regressed, I vaguely remembered that Camus and Adolphe had always had a good relationship, and it was impossible for her to suddenly leave the family or go into reclusive training in the Dark Hall. So, the responsibility lies entirely with me. If I hadn't interacted with her since childhood, if I hadn't arranged a marriage with her, if I hadn't followed Adolphe to rescue her, if I hadn't used her to escape Hugo's gaze, perhaps she wouldn't have joined the perilous Dark Hall. Meanwhile, I had already reached the red-haired girl. After undergoing the punishment just now, my heart was finally relieved. Perhaps this was the result of history's progression. Even though I am a reborn person, all I can control is my own future. Looking at the red-haired girl, she was gathering an even hotter spell. But before her attack could land, I grabbed her arm, and with my other hand, I suddenly grabbed her head, forcefully tearing off the mask that was covering her face. Upon seeing her true face, my killing intent was set. Under the red-haired girl's mask, it wasn't the face I was familiar with. Immediately, I summoned Beelzebub, and with one strike, I severed the connection at her neck. As for now, I must patiently wait for my body to regenerate. Just then, Dollars suddenly ran over and cast healing magic on me. With her help, my wounds healed quickly. At the same time, Dollars asked me a question. Do you know this red-haired girl? Because just now, I had chosen to defend instead of attacking, and Dollars had noticed. If we weren't acquainted, or even closer, how could I have done that? In response, I told her that I didn't know her at all. I just suddenly thought of my second brother, who had passed away recently, and my mood was a bit heavy, so I wanted to numb myself with an attack. Seeing Dollars' reaction, it seems the lie I casually fabricated had some effect. But just as I was about to leave, Dollars suddenly asked me a question. Why are you really here? Can you stop lying and tell me? After hearing this, my response was only 2 words: demon hunting. Perhaps because this answer wasn't what Dollars had hoped for, her mood visibly dropped. As for me at that moment, I bent down and picked up the torn cloth. From the powerful magic still lingering on it, it seemed its existence was far from simple, so I decided to keep it with me for now and investigate it further later. Little did I know, the next second, a terrifying surge of magic suddenly erupted. Then, Quilty's voice appeared out of nowhere. Give me back what's in your hand. At this moment, a mouth appeared on the red-haired girl's body. If I lose or damage those things, that woman will never forgive me. Then, Quilty asked if I was the one who had been attacking branches of his jurisdiction lately. In response, I answered, you already know, so why ask? Demon, or should I call you Quilty? Just then, Dollars suddenly exclaimed in shock. This voice, could you be Quilty? Seeing that things had been exposed to this extent, Quilty decided to stop hiding his identity within the Quo Vadis family. Did you not expect it, Saintus? I've been hiding right beside you for so long, and yet, as a devout believer, you never noticed anything strange about me. But looking at Dollars' expression of despair and fear, Quilty showed a wicked smile. Finally, I can take your face. Before he could finish his sentence, the next second, Dollars suddenly began chanting the holy magic. A pure light beam instantly descended from the sky, striking the area where Quilty had set his position. But just as Dollars thought everything was over, that familiar figure appeared once again. At the same time, a strong attack hit me in the abdomen. My dear Saintus, did you forget what I taught you? It's impolite to interrupt others. Then, Quilty walked in front of Dollars, and seeing her still stubbornly trying to protect a severely injured person, Quilty disdainfully said, a dead-faced swordsman, even if you don't protect him, he'll still die. Immediately after, Quilty grabbed Dollars by the chin. Now, your age is the most delicious time. Why don't you hurry up and give me your face? Before the words left his mouth, what awaited him was me, driving my sword straight through his head. As I tracked your trail, there's something I realized about you. Your cowardice in easily sacrificing your subordinates. A coward who refuses to fight directly. I figured you'd never show yourself unless I got injured, so I just pretended to be injured. Healing such wounds is nothing. So how's my acting, demon? But at that moment, the demon suddenly said, call me Dantalion, you damned brat. Meanwhile, Dollars behind me was staring wide-eyed. Didn't you pierce his head? How is he still alive? But her words received no response. Suddenly, Dantalion had a flash of insight. So it's you. You're the one who killed Andromalius. As his words fell, another human body emerged from behind Quilty. Her figure was quite stunning, but the hateful part was that she had become a part of the 9th Elite Corps demon's body. Dantalion's ability is to collect other people's faces and gain their vitality and memories. Quilty was just one of many faces I had. Until you kill all the substitutes, you'll never get rid of me. Listening to his words, I was enraged. Since that's the case, I'll do as you say and kill them all. But just then, after I pierced through Dantalion's second substitute with my sword, he actually dared to use the original owner's emotional plea. Please don't kill me. I have a child at home waiting for me. However, such emotions could never affect me. At most, they would only influence Dollars behind me. The next scene was the same as before. Dantalion revived with another substitute. This time, it was a man. I clearly clearly bought my daughter's favorite meat pie. Why am I here instead of walking home? As soon as he finished speaking, he was greeted by a cold, sharp sword strike. Next, a child appeared. I haven't done anything wrong. Why are you bullying me? You can stop the act. I'm already immune to it thanks to your friend. Suddenly, Dantalion revealed a sinister smile. Since that's the case, how about this? Suddenly, one of Dantalion's face shot toward my wrist. This is a gift I'm giving to you, little brat. I'm sure you'll love it. Meanwhile, the substitute Dantalion revealed this time was the one who appeared in the academy, and he laughed smugly. My face transplant technique can be implanted onto anyone, showing the memories and emotions of the face's previous owner. And what I just transplanted onto you was one of the rare masks I collected. It belongs to someone who suffered from paranoia and schizophrenia, resulting in him killing his precious family. Soon, your memories and that person's trauma will mix, and your consciousness will begin to perish. At this moment, Dantalion, who had been self-assured, suddenly froze. In order to rid myself of Dantalion's face transplant, I didn't hesitate to cut off my arm. Then, in front of him in dollars, I used my regeneration ability. I may be fighting a demon, but that doesn't mean I'm your average human. Dantalion finally understood why Andromalius lost to a human. At the same time, he noticed Beelzebub parasitizing my arm. I see. I knew this little brat had a faint demonic aura about him. If I fought him head-on, I might not be his match. Then, Dantalion pointed his finger at dollars behind me. The moment his face transplant was activated again, I quickly intercepted it. But this was actually just something Dantalion wanted to verify. I knew you would protect Saintess Dollars. You have a weakness right beside you. Hearing this, Dollars became worried about my safety. She couldn't let the Nighthound fight alone. Even though she was trembling in fear, she had to step in and assist. But just as Dollars' courage was starting to rise, the next second, a face appeared in her line of sight. Meanwhile, Dantalion decided to let me experience the new move he had just thought of. Suddenly, countless tentacles shot toward my location at lightning speed. Since a single human face can't threaten you, then I'll give you all of my lifelong collection at once. Hearing this, I scoffed. Then I'll make sure these souls can't even touch a single hair on me. With that, I began my relentless attacks at lightning speed. Little did I know, at that moment, a familiar face suddenly shot into my line of sight. As I suspected, it was Perry. She was really eaten by Dantalion. Little did I know, this situation caused me to lose focus, which directly led to me being surrounded by the pile of faces. Afterward, my vision went black, and I passed out. When I woke up again, I found myself in a strange, dark environment. However, I quickly realized where I was. I was inside Dantalion's ability. At this moment, countless soul-chilling auras rushed towards me, and they kept muttering their own curses under their breath, expressing their intense feelings of hatred and resentment toward those they despised. I crouched down and patted a child's head, intending to comfort them, but I found that they seemed to be completely unaware of my presence, showing no response to me at all. But since the souls Dantalion consumed had appeared here, Perry should be somewhere as well. I had to find her. Meanwhile, on the other side, not just me, but Dollar's consciousness had also been swallowed into Dantalion's realm of imagery. At this moment, she collapsed to her knees, powerless, knowing that the ones before her were all souls devoured by the demon. Suddenly, Dantalion appeared behind Dollars and said, "How does it feel, my dear Saintess? These are treasures I've collected from the human world, and I've carefully considered many times. I didn't eat any of those ugly ones." Then, Dantalion asked contentedly, "Doesn't the weeping of these souls move your heart?" Upon hearing this, Dollars replied, "Whether they are children from the orphanage or others, how could you commit such a heinous sin?" Unexpectedly, Dantalion didn't think he had committed any sin at all. Then, he took out what he called an indulgence. "Moreover, I have this. I can buy off my sins with money. This is an idea I learned from your kind. If I truly must be judged as guilty, then you should have the humans in the church reflect first. I've taken in those homeless orphans without any conditions, providing them with food and a warm environment. If they are grateful, they should be treated as food by me. Of course, you, the so-called Saintess, should be the first to be condemned. You're just lucky to have the divine power. But those whose hearts are weak are utterly useless. They only cause trouble for those around them. If not for you, that swordsman might not be trapped in this dark corner. All thanks to you." And seeing Dollars, who didn't refute a single word, Dantalion felt quite satisfied. At the same time, he eagerly anticipated the despair Dollars would experience after being tainted by the souls. At that moment, Dollars suddenly gave Dantalion an affirmative response. "You're right. Everything you said is true. My mistakes all stem from my indecisiveness. But I still believe, even in despair, there is direction to be found, and that direction lies in the power shared between people." As Dollars radiated brilliant divine power, Dantalion was immediately shocked. "You weren't being tainted." In contrast, Dollars responded, "Thanks to you, I finally understand the immense negative impact my indecisiveness has caused. I was too afraid of my father to abolish the indulgences, and too afraid of death to help the Nighthound fight alone. I've always known how useless I was. But on that day, he told me this. The reason God chose you from among billions of humans is, of course, because you possess the kindest heart. What the world truly needs is a beam of light that can penetrate the source of all evil. This time, I will not choose to escape, nor will I feel even a hint of fear." At this moment, Dollar's divine power reached its peak. Seeing his collection about to be destroyed, Dantalion hurriedly tried to stop her. "These humans can still be brought to life. life. But souls exorcised by holy power can't be revived. Dollars knew about this. However, those children had already made up their minds and reached a consensus with her. I'm sorry I couldn't save you. I'm sorry I wasn't able to bring you back to your families. Please forgive me. On the other side, after a long journey, I finally found that familiar figure. Perry, I finally found you. There are still things I haven't said to you. My life should have been nothing but revenge against demons, and coming to the orphanage was no different. I never thought about what would be involved behind me, nor did I know when I would die at the hands of demons, until I met you, until I saw your smile. I finally understood that besides revenge, there's something far more meaningful waiting for me to do. That is to create a world for children like you to live with a smile on your face. Thank you for giving meaning to my journey. The next second, Perry suddenly spoke. You really came back to see me again. I was so scared. Upon hearing this, I immediately hugged Perry. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you, but I promise you, I'll never forgive the one who made you cry. A faint smile formed on Perry's face, and with that smile, she softly whispered, yeah, after purging all the vengeful souls, dollars, and I broke free from Dantalion's illusionary world. How could the saintess possess such power? Could it be that she has awakened? In contrast, my body underwent a transformation under the light of divine power. This time, my strength truly broke through to the 7th sword level. At the same time, my original liquid aura was gradually turning into a solid state. Seeing this, Dantalion immediately realized that I had become a sword master. Dantalion, don't even think about dying easily. Meanwhile, under the radiance of her divine power, my emotions began to be shared with her. Dollars felt my sadness over the children's sacrifice and my anger towards the demons. As a saintess, she could awaken when meeting her true soulmate, and at this moment, I became the only condition for her awakening, and she gained a new ability called Soul Resonance. This ability lets the saintess grant her divine power to her acknowledged soulmate, temporarily boosting their abilities. As Dollars bestowed her divine power upon me, my strength had reached the same realm as Hugo, a sword master. At the same time, she learned that my true identity was Vakir van Baskerville. On the other hand, Dantalion was stunned, unable to believe that my strength had surpassed his by a whole level, and having lived in the human world for so long, few humans could reach my current realm. Even if they did, they were mostly the leaders of noble families. How could this brat have the qualifications to reach such a realm? But just as Dantalion was pondering, the world in his vision suddenly flipped upside down. In that instant, with a single swing of my sword, I cleaved through him so cleanly that he didn't even have time to react. Immediately after, I swung my sword again, turning what was left of his body into minced meat and leaving only his head behind. Now that the souls you collected have been purified and vanished, without your reserve faces, you have no means left to struggle. It must be despairing, Dantalion. Meanwhile, Dantalion never imagined this would be his end. Their mission as the 10 elite corpses was to gather magic in the human world and open the gate to the demon realm. He believed that it wouldn't take long to easily conquer the human world, but who would have thought that there'd be a human to stop them? I must kill this one, even if it costs my life. Then Dantalion suddenly let out a strange laugh. Why do you think I have no faces left? There's still one left. Clearly, Dantalion was about to self-destruct in a desperate attempt for a slim chance of victory. As the opponent's size rapidly expanded, Dollars quickly asked me what we should do next. If this continues, this entire area will become ruins. But I told Dollars not to worry, for I am certain I can reach it, a level I yearned for my entire life before regression but could never reach. I'm going to use that strike Hugo showed me that day. As for Dantalion, he was already at the point of self-destruction, and he proudly left his final words. From here on, it's up to you, brothers, to complete the mission. Make sure humanity faces its doom. Unbeknownst to him, the next second, I successfully replicated Hugo's strongest strike, turning his last hope into air and dust. The power of this move was also overwhelming. It pierced through the sky, affecting the streets and alleys of the imperial capital. This caused Tudor and the others to wake up in a panic from their dreams, thinking it was a sudden earthquake. But when they looked up at the sky through the window, the sight instantly left everyone frozen in place. They couldn't understand how this happened. As for Dollars, she was the same, but she understood a bit more than the others. It was the Night Hound she knew who had eliminated the demon, protecting everyone in the orphanage. Soon, this event caused the people of the imperial capital to fall into panic. Just like the previous incident on the Quo Vadis family, the Night Hound was identified as the perpetrator, drawing a large crowd to the scene. At this moment, Tudor was furious, and unaware of the truth. He swore, I will personally capture him and prove that I am worthy of being a hero who saves the world. On the other hand, Sancho was quite surprised. Despite such a huge explosion, there wasn't a single casualty. PG quickly corrected his mistake, explaining that the head of the orphanage, Quilty, and his personal bodyguards had mysteriously gone missing, and it was likely they had heroically sacrificed themselves while fighting the Night Hound. So he should be careful with his words, as it would be disrespectful to the dead. As for Dollars, she told Pietro the whole truth. However, Pietro was confused. Although I always thought Quilty was a cunning old fox, how could he be a demon? And he had been blending in with our Quo Vadis family for so long. Yet the one who ultimately solved this problem was the Night Hound, who was accused of the attack. It seems even if we tell others the truth, they might not believe such an absurd story. At this moment, Dollars suddenly said, said, "Pietro, I apologize in advance for what's about to happen." With that, she walked straight toward the reporters who had come to gather information. When they saw it was the Saintess, they immediately approached her. Taking advantage of this, Dollars pulled out a notebook. This was the notebook I had handed to her before I left yesterday, and it contained a list of everyone who had purchased indulgences and their corresponding crimes. This time, Dollars decided not to run away anymore. She was going to expose everything inside. The details about the indulgences and their sales were sent by Quilty, the side branch head of the Quo Vadis family, and addressed to Humbert, my father, who was also the cardinal of the Quo Vadis family. As for the rest, Dollars naturally recounted every single purchase of indulgences and the corresponding crimes without missing a word. Meanwhile, I was sitting at the last place where I had accompanied Perry. So, 8 of the 10 corpses remain. I swear, Perry, I will create a future where children like you can live and smile at the end of this path. May you be able to smile freely there. Before long, Dollars was in Professor Vency Morg's office, arguing about her column not being published. I didn't lie. I recorded everything as it really happened. Vency Morg responded seriously. "You're asking a question you already know the answer to." He then pointed out the problems in Dollars' report, mentioning that these issues were all strongly offensive to certain groups. For this reason, the Academy decided to maintain a neutral stance on governance. And besides, didn't your father, the Cardinal, deny all of this? Hearing this, Dollars quickly said she had the ledger of indulgence sales in her hands, but she was directly met with Vency Morg's disapproval because it was considered to be an unverified ledger from an unknown source. Immediately, Dollars threw out a question. "Are you now standing on the Quo Vadis family's side too?" Vency Morg remained silent for a moment before finally speaking. "If you want your column published, then focus the attention back on the crimes committed by the Night Hound. Don't create unnecessary confusion for me and the Dean." Hearing this, Dollars said it wasn't confusion. She believed Vency Morg had been pressured by her father, the Cardinal. Vency Morg looked helpless. If it was just the Cardinal, not even I would have needed to listen to him. At that moment, Dollars was stunned. There's only one person in the Quo Vadis family with a higher status than my father. That would be the Pope, who held the highest authority. But Dollars could never believe that. Even if everyone else in the world had fallen, the Pope, whom she had always admired, could fall too. Could there be some hidden secret in this? At this point, Vency Morg explained again. "Your column was never suitable for publication from the start, because you clearly show a biased tone toward the Night Hound. Don't forget that the first attack case was closely tied to him." By now, Dollars didn't know how to continue explaining, but she still firmly believed that the Night Hound hadn't done anything wrong. The ones who were wrong were Quo Vadis and the demons hidden inside, and there were other demons in the world. The Night Hound has fought this brutal battle alone and will keep doing so. Now that I've had this conversation with Professor Vency Morg, I understand why he keeps his work to himself and risks only his own life to kill demons. Before Dollars left the office, Vency Morg specifically warned, "Don't probe further into this matter, or the consequences are not something you can bear." Dollars naturally complied with this, but that didn't mean she wouldn't help the Night Hound with his concerns. Meanwhile, on the other side, after a long period of volunteer work, I had returned to the dull and noisy life at the Academy. Suddenly, Tutor patted me on the shoulder and said, "Today, we all agreed to work out together. Do you want to come as well?" I declined, saying, "I'm not feeling well. I need some time alone for now." Upon hearing this, Tutor's expression changed drastically. It seemed like he had imagined something. At the same time, PG was about to say he would go back to the dorm as well, but was stopped by Tutor. "Alone time is important. We'll take PG with us." After that, I returned to my dorm. Since that day, I hadn't had any time alone, but now I could finally organize the things in my backpack properly. The biggest gain from this battle was of course the masks worn by Dantalion servants. At that moment, the 4 masks suddenly linked together at a visibly fast speed, and what appeared before me was the human mask of Beastly Heart Picaresque. According to my memories from my past life, it gets stronger the more of your race you kill. In other words, the more humans you kill while wearing the mask, the stronger you become. It even provides monstrous levels of regeneration and mana reserves. In order to figure out what this effect was, I boldly decided to wear it and try. After putting it on, I was stunned. During the battle with Dantalion, the consumed magic power and stamina were instantly restored, and the fatigue completely vanished. Not even the Salamander's super regeneration could compare to such an effect. However, I still felt something was odd. Why did my sight seem to have lowered? Even my field of view had become black and white. When I finally realized that my body had shrunk and turned into a dog, I figured this was the side effect. Fortunately, I was back in my dorm and PG wasn't around. Otherwise, it would be difficult to explain. After removing the mask, I quickly returned to my original form. Suddenly, I had a brilliant idea. Since the Academy didn't have a rule against keeping pets, maybe my movements could become more agile because of it in the future. Just then, I heard the sound of eggshells cracking from my backpack. I quickly took out Madam's egg and discovered that it had entered the hatching stage. It was surprisingly resilient, having been played with for so long, yet still perfectly fine. Come to think of it, its movement back then must have been a sign that it was hatching. After a long struggle, the creature inside the egg finally broke through its shell, but it was only the size of a palm, which left me stunned. It even occasionally made barking sounds. Was it learning from the time I turned into a dog earlier? At that moment, I noticed that it was hungry, so I took out a piece of jerky and placed it in front of it, but it shook its body sidewards, clearly not interested. Although it was indeed a bit lacking compared to its mother, it still had the potential to grow into an S-level companion. Afterward, I was about to go out and find some food for this little one, when I happened to see PG being bullied by a group of students around a corner. Among them, I recognized the one with purple hair. He was Granui the Leviathan, the arrogant genius from the Leviathan family. I heard he was also the second strongest in this year's Fire Corps. From their conversation, I figured out the reason they were bullying PG. They wanted PG to voluntarily withdraw from the academy and declare that such a place wasn't for commoners. But when Granui the Leviathan mentioned that even I should leave the academy, PG suddenly became enraged, then grabbed his collar and warned, "You can insult me, but I will never allow you to insult my friends." To his surprise, as soon as he finished speaking, PG was violently pushed away by Granui the Leviathan, who then ordered his subordinates to give him a good beating. At that moment, PG closed his eyes, clearly powerless to resist, preparing to take a punch. However, just as he reopened his eyes, the person who had wanted to strike him was now firmly held by Tutor, who had rushed over. As for the other subordinate, it was naturally Sancho who dealt with him, and just like that, I moved to help PG. Seeing that he couldn't gain anything from the situation, Granui the Leviathan smartly ordered his subordinates to stop. Tutor wasn't pleased with this. "You dare touch my friend?" Hearing this, Granui the Leviathan flashed a wicked smile, apparently surprised that the genius from the Don Quixote family was fraternizing with commoners. "It seemed like your level wasn't as impressive as it appeared." Tutor stated that the academy had clear regulations, and there was no distinction between nobility and commoners. However, upon hearing this, Granui the Leviathan immediately shifted the topic. "You lose control of your emotions so easily. You're still ashamed for not achieving anything at the scene of the Nighthounds incident." From Tutor's expression, it was clear that this was indeed a factor. However, he still responded by saying the incident occurred while he was sleeping. As he spoke, a large amount of red poisonous gas emanated from Granui the Leviathan's body. Losers always have excuses. "If I was there, I would have caught the Nighthound." Seeing that the poisonous gas was still being released, Tutor immediately warned, "Are you going to show off your skills inside the school? This is just something cute. A threat simply to show you the difference in our strength. Fall into despair after feeling this gap, you ignorant fools." As for me, I suddenly began inhaling the poisonous gas that Granui the Leviathan had released. From the physiological reaction of my body, this thing is paralytic. At the same time, the little spider on my shoulders seemed to take an unusual interest in the poison gas. The next second, its small mouth opened wide, and the poisonous gas was crazily sucked into it. I was instantly filled with confusion at its behavior. Could it be that this guy treats the poison gas as food? However, to prevent it from being poisoned, I quickly stopped the little spider from continuing, but it seemed the poison gas had already been absorbed to the point that only a wisp remained. At this point, Tutor, seeing that the threatening poisonous gas had disappeared without a trace, thought Granui the Leviathan had backed off due to fear. What he didn't know was that Granui the Leviathan was already stunned. He had a hunch that the poison gas he had just released had been sucked away by me, who was standing at the back, but this had never happened before. Naturally, after thinking for a moment, Granui the Leviathan cleared his doubts. At that moment, Tutor issued a challenge to Granui the Leviathan in accordance with the school rules. "If you have the guts, let's see who scores higher in the team event at the upcoming midterms. The team with the lower score will run around the academy naked." Without hesitation, Granui the Leviathan accepted Tutor's challenge. "Seeing you all become a laughingstock will be fun to watch." After Granui the Leviathan left, PG apologized to Tutor. "If it weren't for me, this wouldn't have happened." Tutor responded, saying he wasn't blaming anyone, he simply didn't like that guy. But at that moment, PG started crying, because he felt that with his strength, he would definitely be the one holding everyone back. In response, Tutor pointed out PG's best quality. "Don't forget, you're the one with the best logical mind among us. I believe your intelligence gathering will play a crucial role. Moreover, with me and Sancho as the vanguards, you'll just need to be the commander and stand in the middle. As for Vakir, he'll be the rear guard with his bow and arrows. With this combination, it'll be hard for us not to score high." After getting a dose of Tutor's motivational speech, PG finally regained his confidence. But the next second, what I said left everyone present in shock. "I already have someone to form a team with, so I'm afraid I won't be joining you guys. Can't you do something about it?" "Actually, no. Promises are important, and you guys know that." Hearing this, everyone was speechless. "Vakir, please learn to read the room." The scene shifted, and soon it was the day of the team event. As Dollar's team appeared, the audience cheered loudly in support. This midterms was open to the public, and there were 3 subjects. The first was to test the team's defensive abilities, the second was the assessment of individual abilities, and the last was the written test. As for today's exam, it was a test of defensive abilities. The academy would use the most advanced holographic magic technology to create a dungeon inside the arena, meaning that the monsters inside the dungeon were all illusory. In contrast, the students' bodies would be covered by shield magic, and when they received a certain amount of impact, it would be displayed in digital form on a distant instrument panel. Finally, the exam results would be based on the team's contribution and the defense time. A Of course, if their hit points or HP dropped to 0, the exam would automatically end. There would be 3 waves of monsters, each lasting 20 minutes. If they lasted for 60 minutes, it would be a perfect score. In no time, 58 minutes had passed, and Dollar's team unfortunately couldn't hold out for the last 2 minutes against the monsters. However, they obtained the best record among the third-year students. Since the graduating fourth-year students didn't participate, everyone believed that Dollar's team set the best record for this midterm. Meanwhile, all this information had been gathered by PG, who analyzed it professionally and shared it with his teammates. Normally, the third years reach the third round, and the second years reach the second, so if we first years hold out for 20 minutes, we'll be at the top. Hearing this, Tutor responded, "We can't just be satisfied with that, PG. In order to crush Granui's ego, we need to at least get halfway through to the second round." At this moment, a girl's voice suddenly interrupted their conversation. "You have me, so getting that far won't be a problem." The newcomer was none other than Bianca. "Just make sure you guys tank well so the monsters don't rush at me. I'll get the monsters for you." Tutor disdainfully replied, "Bianca, teamwork doesn't mean one princess and 3 slaves. My naked body is on the line, so please delegate sincerely. I don't want to see your naked body either. My eyes will rot if that happens, so make sure you do well, Tutor." At that moment, Sancho stopped them. "This isn't the time to argue." Seeing this, PG commented that this was nothing new, as their relationship had never been very good. But what made PG curious was why his roommate had joined a different group. Meanwhile, I gave the triplets an order. "I don't like being the center of attention. Though stuff happened and I got some attention, it'll be bad if I receive any more than this. Go crazy so that I don't have to do anything." At this moment, the 3 brothers' only thought was to complete the first mission I gave them in the academy and absolutely not make any mistakes. On the other side, Granui sneered as he saw Tutor's team had been joined by Bianca, mocking him for abandoning his commoner friend because he was afraid of losing. He arrogantly declared that he would never lose because his team also had a tough character and she was Sinclair. And with that, the first part of the first-year midterm exam officially began. As the cheers from the students grew louder, the barrier around the arena was activated. Seeing this, I remembered that in my past life, I never had the chance like today to witness each part of the exam process with my own eyes. At this moment, Hiburo suddenly realized it seemed like I was gathering information about the exam. So, he started explaining to me, "Each of us has a 100-point HP limit, and when it reaches 0, it means we lose our combat ability, which will result in an immediate termination and will be escorted out of the exam arena." As for the monsters, even though they were holographic projections created by magic, the poisonous gas they sprayed was real. Even if we're not physically attacked, staying within the range of the gas for too long will continuously drain our HP. However, safety is ensured. If anything goes wrong, the instructors will immediately intervene to provide rescue. After hearing Hiburo explain so clearly, I asked, "Could it be that you guys have practiced this beforehand?" In response, Middleborough gave an affirmative answer. "While you were away, the 3 of us practiced a few times in the training grounds at home. Then I'll leave this 3 to you." Hearing this, the triplets were full of confidence, swearing that no matter what, they would deliver a perfect score for me. At the same time, Tutor and the others walked over. "Here you are, Vakir." But what he didn't expect was that the people I had made arrangements with were actually the Baskerville triplets. So, Tutor hurriedly pulled me aside and whispered, trying to confirm whether I had been threatened by the other party and forced to join their team. After all, the triplets had a bad reputation when they were young, and this was something everyone knew. In response, I gave a negative answer, explaining that they were not good at the cultural subjects, so they specifically came to me for tutoring. In exchange, they promised to help me get a good result in the first team exam. Although Tutor found this a bit unbelievable, he didn't ask any further questions. Meanwhile, the 68th team's exam for the first year ended, and it was now time for the 69th team, led by Granui de Leviathan, to enter the exam field. Before long, the appearance of many virtual monsters signaled the official start of the exam. At the same time, Granui and the others assigned the main output role to Sinclair, while the 3 of them focused on controlling and drawing the monsters. As for Sinclair, she didn't disappoint. After charging up a powerful attack spell, she instantly wiped out several incoming monsters. Upon seeing this, the spectators outside began to cheer passionately. As for Sinclair's performance, I was also quite amazed. Her strength truly deserved to be ranked number 1 in the Fire Corps, and her future growth was undoubtedly promising. Still, if she's really this skilled, why didn't she do anything during the fall? Soon, all members of Granui's team had their HP drop to 0. Although the exam had ended, their results were quite impressive, 19 minutes and 55 seconds, currently ranked first in the first year. This took Tutor by surprise, because this score had broken the previous record set by the first-year students. However, when he saw Granui's smug expression directed at him, Tutor and the others were immediately enraged, vowing that they would not let the new record stand, and that their team would definitely be the victorious one. Before long, with the conclusion of the 107th team's exam, it was now our turn to take the field. Seeing this, Tutor and the others immediately sent us their cheers. On the other hand, the triplets also encouraged each other. Their number 1 goal was also to set a new record. As soon as the exam began, Bianca was watching from the spectator stands, feeling a bit curious. It turned out she saw that my main weapon, like hers, was also a bow and arrow. At that moment, facing the swarming monsters, I immediately drew my bow and knocked an arrow, then quickly shot nearly 10 arrows in one breath. Seeing this, Bianca was stunned. What on earth? Vikir's rapid-fire shooting has reached this level? They're fast, but still weak and lack accuracy. Yet, why do I have this uneasy feeling that something's wrong? But the truth is, I had already compressed my strength to the maximum. After all, if I went all out, even a brand new A-class monster would be instantly killed by me. However, doing this seemed to go against the agreement I once made with Ayan. I remember she said, "I won't let you go if you lose to anyone with the bow." But never mind, when it reaches her ears, I'll explain it properly then. Afterward, I called out the little spider. After all, it was now the free meal phase. Taking advantage of the opportunity when the monsters could release toxic gas, I let it have a good feast. However, I still reminded it not to draw too much attention. The buffet would continue until the exam was over. Soon after, the triplets were kneeling on the ground, crying their eyes out because they had failed. Our team's score was only 19 minutes and 50 seconds, and we ranked second place among the first years. On the other hand, Grenouille de Leviathan, upon hearing this result, immediately mocked me. "I told you, commoners are just commoners. Even if someone leads them, they're just a burden." In response, the triplets directly put their swords to their necks. They wanted to die to atone. It was their lack of strength that caused me to suffer merciless ridicule from others. Seeing this, I immediately stopped them. Securing the second place isn't so bad. As for what came next, it was naturally time for the 109th team, led by Tudor, to beat the record of 19 minutes and 55 seconds that Grenouille's group set. Our aim is to clear the first wave. As the examination began, they proceeded as originally planned. Tudor and Sancho took the vanguard against the monsters, with the archer, Bianca, providing support from behind, and though not strong in combat, PG, with clear logic, served as the core brain of the entire team, directing them on how to hunt monsters most efficiently. Their coordination was exceptionally seamless. It seems they were well prepared to clinch the victory. But on the other hand, from the end of the match until now, I've been feeling a sense of inexplicable emptiness. Where did the little spider go? Just then, as I looked down at the arena, my whole body went numb. The little spider was still there, eating the toxic gas. Why is it still there? I clearly put it back and hid it around my neck. Could it be that it couldn't resist its craving for poison and sneaked away from me? Not only that, its feeding also triggered molting, and its size more than doubled. I have to say, the growth rate of Madame 8-Leg's offspring is ridiculously fast. But since the exam is still ongoing, there's nothing I can do about it. I can only pray it won't be noticed by others before the exam ends. Meanwhile, Tudor is demonstrating his family's unique skills, shattering them into pieces. As for his performance, Tudor is quite satisfied, but for Bianca, this is just a waste of energy and unnecessary action. Defeating monsters doesn't require tearing them apart. One must learn restraint. With that said, Bianca immediately prepared to give Tudor a good demonstration. As her magically enhanced arrows flew, the monster was shot in a vital spot and died instantly. To this, Tudor, of course, wouldn't just stand there and admit defeat and claim that he was only showing off earlier. So, they decided to compete with each other to see who could kill more monsters before the exam ended. Seeing this, Sancho felt helpless. He couldn't tell whether the two of them got along or not. But soon, their self-made decisions caused chaos, so PG quickly called everyone to regroup for a moment. Then, PG told them his plan. "Bianca, you don't have to kill them. Aim for their front leg joints to disable their mobility. Tudor, it'll be more effective to strike when the monster's formation starts to falter. Sancho, instead of blocking their direct path, try luring them further inside." With that, they sprung into action. "PG, your sharpness is better than I imagined." PG is truly a warrior as well. After hearing the praise and recognition for himself, PG was filled with joy, as it meant his research before the exam hadn't gone to waste, and everything could be put to use to help the team secure victory. At that moment, each of them felt a realization that this team could definitely win and break the record. However, the final results still didn't go as hoped. They finished the exam with a time of 19 minutes and 55 seconds, tying for first place. Upon seeing this, Grenouille was furious. "Ridiculous, those fools have the same time as us." Meanwhile, Tudor and the others were extremely frustrated. If only they lost at a few more seconds, they could have set a new record and made Grenouille, that arrogant guy, face the humiliation he deserved. Little did they know, just as they were about to leave the exam site, an unexpected event suddenly occurred. The system prompted, "The second wave of monster beasts is about to appear." In no time, Tudor and his team were surrounded by swarms of monsters. Seeing this, as the team leader, Tudor quickly shouted, "I don't know what's going on, but everyone, be careful. From now on, any physical damage you take will feel real. We just have to hold out until the school takes action." On the other side, the professors inside the magic control room were confused as to why the second wave started. In response, one of the professor explained, "This is because the exam site detected unidentified life signs besides the students, causing the system to assume the exam hadn't ended yet, leading to the error message." At this moment, Dollars suddenly pushed open the door. She too came to inquire about what exactly was happening, but in the end, they still needed to quickly figure out a way to rescue the students still in the field. No matter which side the professors were responsible for, they were all in shock at the unidentified life signs, which weren't part of their responsibility. Although some suggested dismantling the device, that would require approval and consent from higher-ups. There were also those who suggested dismantling the magic wall, but that required a key, and the professor with the key had just gone to the restroom. Dollars, listening to their murmurs, naturally understood. No one here wanted to take responsibility. Meanwhile, outside the control room, in the corner of the window, I could hear the professor's words loud and clear. It seems that the little spider grew after consuming poison and triggered the mana stone's life detection. But seeing the toxic gas in the arena gradually spreading, I knew I had to take quick rescue measures, or Tutor and the others will definitely be in danger. Suddenly, I spotted a connection device for the entire projection magic system and deduced it was made for air circulation. Though the entrance was small, I was sure it would work. Thus, I once again became a dog. To avoid reverting back to my original state naked, I had to hold my own school pants in my mouth. At this moment, Dollars did something that made all the professors break into a cold sweat. She actually attacked the magic stone maintaining the device's operation with a sword. As for the professors, they immediately rushed to stop her and said that if the magic stone was broken, Dollars would not only be expelled, but also have to compensate the magic stone's market value, which was extremely high. But Dollars didn't care about any of that. She only knew that if she didn't take action to rescue them, the students inside would die. Meanwhile, PG was slammed by a monster, causing him to lose consciousness. Seeing this, the others thought about going over to protect PG, but they too were under attack from one of the monsters, and no matter who it was, both their magic and stamina were almost completely drained. Without wasting a second, it landed a blow on Tutor and Sancho, then immediately turned its gaze toward Bianca. But just then, I had already removed my mask and returned to my human form. With one powerful punch, I slammed directly into the monster's head. Seeing this, Bianca was just about to ask why I was there when she suddenly lost consciousness. "Don't worry, everyone. I won't let anything happen to you." Meanwhile, Dollars' reckless actions were still stopped by the professors in the control room. At that moment, the professor in charge of the projection device discovered that an unknown life response had suddenly appeared in the arena. This unexpected news instantly shocked the others, as they couldn't figure out any other way to get in besides forcibly breaking through the magic wall. Just what the hell is going on in there? At the same time, due to the excessive amount of poisonous gas Tutor and the others had inhaled, the four of them had already fallen unconscious. But fortunately, I arrived just in time, otherwise their lives would definitely be at serious risk. At this point, I casually glanced at the little spider hiding behind a monster and kindly reminded it one last time. The end of an untamed beast is death. I'll discipline you later. For now, eat up all the poison nearby and keep the students safe. After receiving my command, the little spider immediately began to devour the poison gas. At that moment, a monster suddenly appeared above my head, and it immediately opened its mouth, wanting to put me to death. But it didn't know that I had already sensed the killing intent approaching, so I swiftly countered with a spinning kick, separating its head from its body. At the same time, my strike left the professors in charge of the exam in disbelief. They saw a sudden burst of life force in the arena. On the other hand, I remembered an important fact, that this place had the ability to sense life energy. So, I decided to base my magic level on being an 18-year-old and control my power to the level of a medium-rank sword expert. But I also had to admit, even the monsters created by holographic projection magic had a maximum danger level of B+, and they were almost identical to real monsters from the outside world. Fortunately, I was quite familiar with strategies against these flesh ants from my past life, and with the power of a sword expert, I was barely able to handle it. Then, I equipped myself with all the usable gears on the ground, preparing for the arrival of the third wave of monsters. The flesh ants has two fatal weak points. The first is the rear armor plate where the head connects to the body, and even if it's not completely separated, hitting that area is enough to make the ant lose its sense of direction, causing it to move backward. The second is the central cover bone position on the head, where the shell is much softer than in other places. Little did I know, as I was dealing with the third wave of monsters, a much larger flesh ant silently appeared. Seeing it, I was immediately taken aback. I never expected a general ant with an A-level danger rating to be included in this exam. However, as long as I accurately targeted its fatal weakness, even with my magic level being only that of a sword expert, I can still defeat it. Meanwhile, outside the arena, due to the excessive poison gas released by the flesh ants, and the smoke and dust filling the area, no one could visually confirm who was dealing with the monsters inside. At that moment, the professors were suddenly at a loss because the general ant had been defeated. What was even stranger was that, up until now, all the life signs of the exam participants appeared perfectly normal. Just as this occurred, Vinci Morgue happened to arrive and overheard everything being said. He knew that the general ant was a monster far too strong for the students, and that it was only a gimmick to make it difficult for the students to endure for an hour. As Vinci Morgue wondered who had defeated the general ant, the door behind him was suddenly opened. It turned out that the professor carrying the key to disable the magic wall had been found. Seeing her in a drunken state, it was almost certain that she had passed out somewhere in a nearby alley. On the other hand, Dollars anxiously furiously shouted, "Stop wasting time and get the key to deal with the situation. This isn't the time for idle chatter." At this moment, as the magic wall was removed, a full 42 minutes and 13 seconds had passed since the accident. Upon arriving at the arena, the professors were greatly shocked. All the monsters, including the general ant, had been defeated. At the same time, Dollars was stunned. She didn't understand how I got here. As for me, since I didn't have enough time to escape, I had no choice but to pretend to be unconscious near Tudor and the others. Although it might seem a bit awkward, this was the best way for me to avoid trending again. However, while the idea was good, the reality turned out to be even more exaggerated. Not only did I trend again, but I was also labeled as the hero who jumped in to save the lives of his endangered peers. It wasn't until afterward that I learned this was all part of Bianca's detailed account before she fell unconscious. She had clearly seen me kill a flesh ant right in front of her. Additionally, my previous trending topic had gained even more attention, to the point of being uncontrollable. In desperation, I had to reveal the method I used to defeat the flesh ants, hoping it would help cool things down at the academy. However, to my surprise, this first fatal weakness was a method not even mentioned in the strategy guide. To thank me for my contribution, the Imperial Majesty personally visited Colosio Academy to present me with an award. As a result, I was no longer the focus of the trending topic, but had transformed into a celebrity at Colosio Academy. What should I do? I just wanted to quietly live through my 4 years at the academy, hoping they wouldn't dig too much into my family background. I never expected it to become this troublesome. Just then, an owl suddenly flew towards me, which startled the little spider on my shoulder. But it was just the pet between Cindy Wendy and me. It came to deliver Cindy Wendy's regular report. First, through Cindy Wendy's covert investigation, she discovered new clues about the 10 elite corpses. However, she requires 1 month to analyze it. Last time, I was able to easily defeat the 9th elite corpse with Dollar's divine power. So, I'll need to train hard for the next month before the next task. Second, there are 2 suspects impersonating the Night Hounds. One is doing so for the purpose of praise, while the other's motive is unclear. Third, there's news about my older brother, Osiris, leaving the main city. Lastly, there's a royal bloodline hidden within Colosio Academy. After learning this information, I immediately destroyed it on the spot. Little did I know, in the next second, Sinclair suddenly appeared with unknown intentions. I never expected that even this late, I would unexpectedly run into the Academy's hero. We really must have some kind of fate. After saying this, Sinclair sat beside me. As for me, I was puzzled. Why is someone like her in a place like this right now? I never expected to meet you here. This is the best place to gaze at the stars. Whenever I'm in a bad mood, I come here to stay for a while. Though she said that, Sinclair's heart was actually filled with joy, fantasizing about meeting me here every night in the future. Seeing that I remained silent, Sinclair started looking for a topic to chat about. "Vikir, do you know that everyone at the academy is talking about your achievements?" To this, I responded, "I don't know, and I don't want to know." But she didn't care about what I said, and continued listing all those achievements one by one. "It must not have been enough for you to come first in theory, since you wrote 3 to 4 research papers that turned the academic world upside down. You're a commoner, an irregular, and a high-level expert." Just as she was about to continue her endless rambling, I had no choice but to interrupt her. "Things like achievements are meaningless, so there's no need to pay too much attention to them." Upon hearing this, Sinclair was immediately confused, not understanding what point I was trying to express. But this wasn't surprising, since the current her had never experienced the time of the fall, where things like money, honor, and power quickly lose their initial value, and the only thing known to the world is the collapsing order. At this point, Sinclair laughed and said, "You talk as if you've lived for a long time. You sound like an old man." Luckily, she stopped at that, and didn't go on any further. As for the topic we discussed afterward, it was all about the upcoming midterm exams. Like me, Sinclair also had many secrets that were unknown to others. But upon further thought, even the Fire Corps' perennial top student lost contact with everyone during the fall, completely disappearing from history. If her commoner identity is also a disguise, then the royal who's hiding their identity, as per what was written in Cindy Wendy's letter, must be her. The scene shifts, and soon it was the day the second midterm exam began. Tudor and the others were still following me closely. It's a shame that my bet with Granui ended in a stalemate. Well, since I found out who I need to set as my rival, I'd say I gained a lot from that exam. Hearing this, even though I knew he was talking about me, I really didn't dare to say another word. Sadly, I couldn't escape their collective complaints. "Vikir, you're really terrible, hiding your high-level expert abilities from your friends." To this, I quickly retorted, "In case you've forgotten, I didn't deal with the monsters by myself." Yet, Tudor still insisted I was just being modest. Just then, PG told us that the Night Hound had a new case recently. At that moment, I saw PG take out a newspaper. Apparently, the students at the Varangian Drill Hall who came to the Imperial capital for a field trip were ambushed and hurt gravely by the Night Hound. Meanwhile, I fell into deep thought, because I knew this was the work of one of the 2 imposters. One of them hasn't committed any crimes recently, but the number of crimes the other has committed is gradually increasing. If this continues, safety precautions against the Night Hound may become stricter, which will directly hinder my assassination operations. It seems that after this exam ends, I need to find a way to get rid of the imposters soon. soon, the second midterm exam began. Unlike the group of 4, this exam was focused on individual strength. Students were assigned to a professor responsible for the assessment and would engage in a one-on-one duel with a clone controlled by the professor. The purpose, of course, was to accumulate real combat experience with stronger opponents. However, this exam's critical flaw is that one professor can only take care of 50 students. In other words, the standards of the students' exam evaluations will differ depending on the professor's specific fighting styles. At that moment, after landing an attack on Venti Morg's clone, Tutor became complacent, which caught him off guard when a sudden vine spell surrounded him. Immediately after, Venti Morg seized the opportunity and launched a punch. Tutor instinctively raised his arm to block the punch, only to realize too late it was a feint. The real attack, a swift kick, slammed into him, knocking him off balance and sending him crashing to the ground. In the end, Venti Morg gave a warning. Don't think that just because I'm a mage, you can ignore my other ways of attacking. Even a mage will use fists and feet for victory, and may even resort to low blows. In the end, Tutor scored a good result of 35 points, with 12 points for effective strikes, 20 points for effective dodges, 3 points for effective defense, and 0 points for fatal strikes. When Bianca heard the results, she seemed a little dissatisfied, thinking that her score of 31 was already quite high, so she quickly found an excuse for herself. This one-on-one exam format is clearly disadvantageous for archers. Just as Tutor was about to respond, Granui called out to him from behind. With this, it's decided that I'm the superior one, Tutor. Seeing his arrogant look, Tutor thought he must have scored over 40 points, but unexpectedly, he ended up with the same score as Tutor, 35 points. Even so, he quickly adjusted his mindset because he knew Tutor's theory were terrible, and in the upcoming written exam, he would definitely beat him. On the other hand, Tutor was also aware of this. Bianca comforted him. We're already quite lucky. After all, our professor is Venti Morg. If we had faced Professor Sadi, there's no way we would have scored over 30 points today. I've heard from the seniors that Professor Sadi is weird and unprofessional. She's the #1 professor that the students should avoid. Tutor anxiously asked, then why is she still allowed to work at the academy? Bianca explained, of course, it's because she has unquestionable strength. I've even heard she's been assisting the military in capturing dangerous criminals like those who resemble the Night Hound. At this point, Tutor began to worry about his friends who might be assigned to Professor Sadi, hoping nothing would go wrong for them. Bianca felt the same, explaining that Professor Sadi was from the bloodline of a fallen marquis and was apparently envious of talented students who came from good families. There were even rumors that she completely destroys talented students, but those rumors were evidently true, as at that moment, PG was being stepped on by Sadi in high heels. Sinclair and Sancho had also been knocked out, all 3 of them scoring 0 points. Seeing this, the other examinees began to try to escape the exam site, fearing their lives might end that day. Meanwhile, Sadi began to mock them. Are all the freshmen this timid? Not a single one meets my expectations. Continuing this will be a complete waste of time. Even so, she still called out the next student to face her, and that person was none other than me. Time rewound to 30 minutes before the exam began, when Sancho enthusiastically shouted, finally, it's my turn to shine. I've been waiting eagerly for this exam. Hearing this, Sinclair asked, looks like you're very confident about this exam. Of course, the win or lose of a one-on-one duel is a virtue for any warrior. How could I not look forward to it? On the other hand, PG explained, I remember Tutor saying earlier that without using magic, Sancho is definitely the top in hand-to-hand combat in the Ice Corps. But just then, a commotion from nearby caught PG and the others' attention. Professor, what are you doing? Isn't that alcohol? How can you drink alcohol during a test that affects students' futures? Upon hearing this, Professor Sadi immediately lied. This isn't alcohol. It's just plain water with a hint of alcohol smell. After saying that, she drank the liquor in one go, even shoving the bottle down her throat. This immediately shocked the student who had stepped forward to ask for an explanation, causing him to break out in cold sweat. If you're really here to take the exam, then mind your own business and stop concerning yourselves with things unrelated to the test. Now, let's begin. At that moment, Professor Sadi casually pointed to the list of students for the exam, making Sancho her first target for the day. Sancho, on the other hand, seemed quite pleased, swaggering up confidently. Seeing this, PG quickly shouted at him, Sancho, be careful. Professor Sadi is rumored to have crippled many students, making them unable to continue their studies. However, Sancho didn't take the matter seriously at all and said confidently, a warrior's will can never be broken. I'm counting on you, Professor. As soon as he finished speaking, Sancho leaped high into the air, aiming to land a powerful blow on Sadi's clone. But Professor Sadi made no immediate move to retaliate. She merely flashed a wicked smile. The next second, everyone was stunned, breaking into a cold sweat. Sancho, who was once full of vigor, instantly collapsed to the ground, his neck tightly gripped by Professor Sadi's clone. At that moment, Professor Sadi was conjuring magic with her hands, saying, does this mean the warrior is disqualified? With a devastating blow, Sancho lost consciousness and was completely out of it. Meanwhile, we rushed forward to rescue him, fearing he might suffer more harm. At the same time, Sinclair desperately demanded an explanation from Professor Sadi. The student can no longer fight fight. Why are you still going all out? Don't you know this exam is to accumulate real combat experience for the students? Upon hearing this, Professor Sadi made a no gesture with her hand. Of course, I know, but this is the policy of the Academy's first headmaster, and it's long been reformed under my management. Besides, there's no room for negotiation in real combat. Then, she pointed towards Sinclair, saying, "You're next. Let's see the skills of the top student in the Fire Corps." In order to prevent the situation from escalating, I immediately advised Sinclair, "You don't need to pay attention to her actions, just refuse the exam. Her behavior has already violated the rules. If we complain to the school, we might get a retest." Unexpectedly, Sinclair turned with a stern face and responded, "I'm grateful that you're concerned about me, but I don't want to avoid someone who hurt my friend." This response was exactly what Professor Sadi had been hoping for. "Are you going to keep frowning with that pretty face? Let's begin." The next second, Sinclair immediately summoned 3 magic circles. Professor Sadi, upon seeing this, was quite impressed. As expected of the top student of the Fire Corps, at such a young age, you're already quite capable, but admiration was all she felt. It didn't mean she would be any less threatening to her. With that, Sadi controlled her clone and threw a punch in response. At the same time, she asked Sinclair, "Have you ever experienced having your magic forcibly cancelled, causing a backlash? If not, I'll let you experience it firsthand today." Under Sadi's move, the magical flow inside Sinclair immediately became chaotic, and the pain it caused was unbearable. "It hurts more than you thought, right? If you're unlucky, this could prevent you from using magic ever again. It'd be funny if the top student in the Fire Corps couldn't use magic anymore." After saying that, Sadi kicked Sinclair, knocking her unconscious, just like Sancho. As the situation grew worse, I was thinking of a way to end this farce, when, to my surprise, PG stepped forward with a sword in hand. Although he wasn't afraid of death, his body clearly showed signs of fear. Professor Sadi scoffed, "What's this? A piece of trash who doesn't even know how to grip a sword." Hearing this, PG tried hard to control himself, trying not to let his emotions get affected. But boosting his morale was no use. In the face of absolute crushing power, nothing mattered. The next second, PG's weapon was kicked into useless scrap, and before he could even react, Sadi's foot sent him flying into the air. Trash is just trash. No matter how much you struggle, you're irredeemable. Seeing another student knocked into a near-death state, the remaining students who hadn't taken the exam immediately began to retreat, knowing they were commoners who stood no chance. The only thing they could do was save their own lives. Looking at my companions lying on the ground, I fell into deep thought. I wasn't sure whether I should be angry right now, but if I got angry, the consequences would undoubtedly be unimaginable. At this moment, Professor Sadi continued to mock. "It seems this batch of freshmen are nothing but cowards. Well then, who's next?" Just as she finished speaking, I stepped into the arena, saying, "I'll do it." At this, seeing me step forward, the students who hadn't dared to act started to chatter amongst themselves. Even though Vakir's magical power is at an expert level, he'll definitely be no match for Professor Sadi. Besides, Abao is weak in one-on-one combat. But strangely, Professor Sadi seemed to treat me differently. She had seen through me as the true genius of this batch and wanted to destroy me, to experience the pleasure it would bring her after my defeat. Just as her attack was about to land on me, I immediately drew my bow and shot an arrow straight at her clone. It only grazed the clone's shoulder, but in the next second, it suddenly froze. At the same time, the other students looked confused. Professor Sadi's clone stopped. It turned out that the arrow had flown straight toward Professor Sadi and pierced one of her eyes. Feeling the intense pain, Sadi collapsed to the ground, screaming in agony. Seeing this, I acted surprised. "I was aiming for your clone. Why did the arrow go there? Are you alright, Professor Sadi?"